one little small, beautiful Jewish man who says, I'm in the savings bonds.
Shaquille O'Neal's life reaches far beyond the basketball court. From a difficult childhood in Newark to a global empire built on discipline, business intelligence, and larger-than-life personality, his story blends success, controversy, and constant reinvention. Today, we break down the lifestyle of Shaq in 2025. But let's take it from the top, because Shaq's story begins long before the NBA lights ever found him. It starts in Newark, New Jersey, inside a fractured home where stability was scarce and the idea of a future felt like something other kids were allowed to have. His biological father, Joe Tony, had once been a promising high school guard with real scholarship attention. Seton Hall looked at him seriously, and people around Newark believed he might have made something of himself. Drugs changed that. Tony slid into addiction, lost his direction, and eventually ended up in prison on a drug possession charge. By the time he was released, he chose not to return to his son's life. He signed away his parental rights, and whatever connection he and his child could have had stopped there. Shaq was raised instead by a man who shaped every part of his identity. Philip Harrison, a disciplined and structured Army sergeant, stepped in as the real father figure. Harrison did not look at Shaq as someone damaged by circumstance. He looked at him as someone who needed direction, responsibility, and constant movement. That mindset turned their household into one defined by rules and expectations. Shaq later said that Harrison gave him the clarity that his biological father never did. Throughout his childhood, the family moved from state to state as the military demanded, including long stretches on bases in Germany and Texas. The travel turned Shaq into a naturally adaptable kid, someone who could walk into a new environment and adjust without fear. By the time the family settled in San Antonio, he had grown into the kind of teenager who looked impossible. He measured 6'10" at 16 years old and moved like someone far smaller. At Cole High School, he became the gravitational force of the team, dragging them to a 78-1 record over 2 seasons. His senior year brought a state championship and records that still have not been touched. He pulled down 791 rebounds in a single season, a number that remains in the Texas record books more than 3 decades later.
I want to make about $6.2 million a year.
Away from the gym, he found something even more valuable. Newark had been dangerous for him, filled with the kind of outside pressure that could pull a young kid in the wrong direction. The Boys and Girls Club offered a place to be safe and alone with the ball. He did not join a team. He did not chase organized games. He went there to shoot in peace and feel like he was somewhere that belonged to him. Later, he said that the club kept him out of trouble and gave him a path at a time when the street could have swallowed him. Shaq spoke with bitterness about his biological father. When Philip Harrison died in 2013, Shaq's grief softened whatever resentment he carried. He reconnected with Joe Tony 3 years later and chose forgiveness over blame. He told him directly that he held no hatred and that he had been raised by the man he needed. That moment closed a long wound and set the tone for how he would live as an adult. Shaquille O'Neal entered the NBA with a promise strapped to his shoulders.
The Orlando Magic selects Shaquille O'Neal.
The league had never seen a prospect who combined that level of size, quickness, balance, and charisma. When the Orlando Magic drafted him first overall in 1992, expectations were enormous, but Shaq did not bother easing into them. He delivered an immediate impact immediately, averaging more than 23 points, nearly 14 rebounds, and over 3 blocks as a rookie. He took the Rookie of the Year award without a challenge. What stood out was not only the production, but how effortlessly he reshaped the scouting report for every opponent. Teams planned their entire defensive schemes around keeping him off his preferred spots near the restricted area, yet he arrived anyway. Orlando had never been relevant before Shaq. He made the franchise national. Ticket sales climbed. Television appearances grew. A young team found an identity built entirely on its new center. By 1994, the Magic reached the playoffs for the first time, proving that his success was not empty statistics. Every team that played Orlando had to choose between doubling him early or letting him wear down their bigs over 4 quarters. Neither option worked for long. The breakthrough arrived in 1995 when the Magic stormed to the NBA Finals. On the way, they ran into familiar giants. Michael Jordan's Bulls could not contain the Magic's spacing, pace, and interior power. Shaq's presence forced Chicago into uncomfortable rotations, and that series became one of the rare early postseason exits in Jordan's career. Taking down Jordan in the playoffs was a moment that confirmed how frightening Shaq already was. After that, Indiana tried their luck. Reggie Miller scored in bursts, but none of it mattered when Shaq was controlling the paint and anchoring the Magic's tempo. The finals ended differently. Houston's experience, talent, and Hakeem Olajuwon's unmatched footwork overwhelmed Orlando in a 4-0 sweep. Shaq put up strong numbers, but the Rockets played with the sharpness of a defending champion. It was a harsh lesson and a reminder that raw power could be matched by precision and preparation. Despite the disappointment, the league saw what the future looked like. Shaq was 23 years old and already defining matchups at a championship level.
Going over and talking to Nick Anderson, trying to inspire him.
In 1996, the Magic believed they were close to building a dynasty. Shaq looked around and did not see the same vision. His relationship with the franchise grew strained when management mishandled contract. Negotiations and local media questioned whether he deserved a massive deal. The Lakers offered 7 years and $121 million. The chance to join a historic franchise with a rising guard named Kobe Bryant turned every doubt into a clear decision. Shaq moved to Los Angeles and shifted the balance of the league. The first years with the Lakers were filled with highlights but lacked playoff breakthroughs. Coaching changes, internal pressure, and inconsistent support kept them from reaching their potential. Everything changed when Phil Jackson arrived before the 1999 season. He brought the triangle offense, a system built for spacing, decision-making, and structured post-play. Shaq became the anchor of that system. Bryant became the perimeter weapon. Together, they turned into one of the most feared duos in basketball history. From 2000 to 2002, the Lakers controlled the league. Shaq dominated the 2000 season at a level that remains rare. He won the regular season MVP, the Finals MVP, and another ring. His playoff numbers were historic.
The paint, the hop, the jumper, Dale Davis grabbed it.
Teams doubled him in waves and still watched him finish at the rim. The Lakers repeated in 2001 and 2002, carving through the West and proving they were the league's new dynasty. Shaq's scoring, rim protection, and leadership made him the center of every game plan. Yet success brought friction. He and Kobe clashed often about roles, responsibility, and credit. The relationship strained the locker room. When the Lakers lost to the Pistons in the 2004 finals, ownership decided the era had reached its limit. Shaq was traded to the Miami Heat, closing out a run that defined nearly 2,000 years of basketball. His time in Miami brought new life. Partnering with a young Dwayne Wade, Shaq helped reshape the Heat into an instant contender. The 2006 championship validated his ability to win in multiple cities and solidified his legacy. As injuries mounted after that season, he shifted to Phoenix, then Cleveland, then Boston, finishing his career with dignity despite reduced mobility. By the time he retired in 2011, Shaq had become a 4-time champion, a 3-time Finals MVP, and one of the most dominant forces ever to step on a court. He changed the geometry of the game and left behind a blueprint for what a true franchise center should be. Shaquille O'Neal did not wait for retirement to start building wealth.
You know, a lot of athletes, when they're done playing, they have no income.
While most players focused on contracts and endorsements, he treated the NBA as the beginning of something much larger. His rookie deal gave him millions, but he treated that money like seed capital. Those early checks went toward education, real mentorship, and guidance from people who understood business far better than he did at the time. He listened to financial advisors, learned from real estate developers, and asked questions about every dollar he spent. By the time he hit his second contract, he already understood that a basketball career ends early, but money can grow for decades. The investments started with simple ideas. Shaq paid attention to products he actually used. One of the first major decisions he made was buying into Google before the company went public. He met the founders at a tech event, liked their vision, and wrote a check. That single investment grew into a fortune. It also shaped the way he approached deals later in life. He looked for companies with staying power and leadership he trusted. Over the next 2 decades, he spread his money across technology, food franchises, fitness centers, and retail brands. He owned dozens of Five Guys locations, many Auntie Anne's stores, and an entire chain of 24-hour fitness gyms. His favorite venture became Big Chicken, a restaurant concept he helped build from the ground up. He worked directly on branding, menu development, and expansion. The company grew fast because Shaq treated it like something more than an endorsement. He wanted ownership, responsibility, and a long-term plan. His real estate portfolio grew just as fast. During the 20 and 2020s, he invested heavily in development projects in Newark. He partnered with Berea Development to create Cityplex. 12. A modern entertainment center designed to revive a struggling part of the city. The project created jobs and brought new life to the area. It became an example of how an athlete can use wealth to change a community without turning it into a publicity stunt. After that success, he joined the same partners on One Riverview, a high-rise apartment complex with luxury units and affordable housing options. He explained that he wanted to help Newark grow because it was the place that shaped him when he had nothing. Shaq also collected properties for personal use. The most famous was his 76,000 square foot mansion in Windermere, Florida. The property had 12 bedrooms, a custom basketball court, a pool shaped like his name, and a car gallery filled with vehicles he had customized. After his divorce and several years of living alone in the giant house, he decided the space did not match his life anymore. He sold it for more than $11 million and bought smaller homes in Miami, Las Vegas, and Texas. His latest purchase, a Mediterranean-style villa in Heath, Texas, cost around $2.3 million and became his main residence.
No doubt in my mind, he's gonna do tampons any day.
His car collection remained the one part of his lifestyle he refused to downsize. Shaq could not fit into most sports cars without modification, so he turned every car into something built specifically for him. His 1963 Cadillac Eldorado kept the classic look, but everything inside was rebuilt to handle his size. His Ferrari 355 Spider required major changes to the interior, including custom seats and modified legroom. His Rolls-Royce Cullinan received a full luxury makeover that matched his personality. Even the Tesla Cybertruck had to be customized so he could drive it comfortably. Shaq's goal was to create a life shaped by comfort, quality, and smart planning. He built wealth slowly, made decisions carefully, and avoided the financial traps that caught so many former players. Today, his net worth is estimated at around $500 million. He earned it through discipline and by surrounding himself with professionals who helped him grow rather than drain his success. Shaq's post-NBA life has been built around movement, ownership, and a clear desire to create spaces that feel both personal and productive. His real estate portfolio stretches across the country, with each home reflecting a different stage of his life. He buys properties with intention, builds them with care, and upgrades them until they match the size and style of a man who never lived small. The property sat on several acres, with a massive footprint of nearly 76,000 square feet. Inside the 12-bedroom structure, he built a private movie theater, a cigar room, a recording studio, and a garage large enough to hold a luxury car gallery. The outdoor area featured a pool shaped like his own name, a full basketball court themed after the Miami Heat, and several lounge areas that overlooked the water. Shaq admitted years later that he rarely used most of the home. He stayed in the kitchen, the bedroom, and the gym, which revealed that the property had grown far beyond what he personally needed. After his divorce, the empty space became more of a reminder than a retreat. In 2021, he sold the mansion for a little over $11 million and moved towards smaller, more practical residences.
So the house is about 31,000 square feet, quite enormous.
One of those homes sits in Heath, Texas, a quiet community outside Dallas. Shaq bought the Mediterranean-style villa in 2024 for a little over $2 million. The property blends comfort with privacy, featuring open rooms, modern architecture, and a backyard designed for calm rather than extravagance. It fits the chapter of his life defined by balance, routine, and careful planning. He also maintains homes in Miami and Las Vegas, choosing cities that support his media work, business ventures, and travel schedule. The investment side of his real estate portfolio stands on its own. Shaq used part of his fortune to help rebuild Newark, the city he came from. In 2012, he partnered with Beret Development to transform an abandoned movie theater into Cityplex 12, a state-of-the-art entertainment complex with modern screens, premium seating, and a large IMAX auditorium. The project created jobs and helped revive a struggling area. It set the foundation for a second major development called One Riverview, a high-rise, residential building that mixes luxury apartments with affordable housing. The property follows a clean, environmentally conscious design, offering gyms, restaurants, and community areas. Shaq said his goal was to give back to Newark in a way that was practical and lasting, not symbolic. His passion for cars reveals another part of his personality. At 7 feet 1 inch tall, he cannot fit comfortably inside standard sports cars, yet he never allowed that to restrict his love for vehicles. Instead, he redesigned them. His 1963 Cadillac Eldorado looks classic from the outside, but the interior has been rebuilt with widened seating and updated technology. His 1998 Ferrari 355 Spider required seat reconstruction, expanded legroom, and modified pedals. The Ferrari keeps its sleek design and signature sound, but every inch of the interior suits Shaq alone. His Rolls-Royce Cullinan received custom paint, premium upholstery, and detailed cabin work. Even his 2024 Tesla Cybertruck Cyber Beast model had to be fully adjusted so he could sit and drive without strain.
Remember when Al Pacino was picking up Michelle Pfeiffer in the Cadillac with the tiger seats?
Okay.
I bought it.
These cars are not simple purchases. They are custom engineering projects designed around his frame, his taste, and his personality. Each one reflects how Shaq blends power with precision. He sees vehicles the same way he sees business investments, as things worthy of customization, intention, and long-lasting quality. By 2025, he continued expanding his collection, investing in more electric models, unique restorations, and vehicles that matched the next phase of his lifestyle. The homes, the developments, and the cars all reveal the same truth. Shaquille O'Neal lives with purpose, scale, and a sense of ownership shaped by decades of growth. His world reflects a man who built comfort from discipline and luxury from patience. Shaq never hid from the trouble he created or the accusations that followed him. Instead, he addressed them with a mixture of denial, clarification, and personal accountability. This part of his life reveals the full complexity of a man who became larger than the game he once dominated. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Shaq developed a reputation for extreme pranks inside the locker room. Former teammate Gary Payton claimed that Shaq welcomed rookies by dumping waste onto their heads, calling it a tradition rather than bullying. Tyronn Lue later described an incident where Shaq urinated in Devin George's shoe before a game. Shaq denied the allegations, calling them exaggerations and misinformation. Fans reacted differently. Some saw these stories as harmless jokes typical of professional sports. Others viewed them as crossing a line. The truth remains unclear, but the stories followed him throughout his media career. In 2010, he faced one of the strangest accusations of his life. His former IT technician, Sean Darling, filed a lawsuit claiming Shaq attempted to install damaging files on his computer to cover up messages related to an alleged affair. The accusation escalated quickly but eventually collapsed in court. In 2017, a judge determined that Darling acted in bad faith and attempted to extort Shaq for millions of dollars. The court ordered him to pay Shaq more than $400,000 in legal fees. The outcome cleared Shaq legally, but showed how easily his private life could become public drama. In 2024, he found himself under scrutiny again. On a podcast, he commented on the length of WNBA star Angel Reese's shorts, implying that her uniform made her uncomfortable. Fans criticized the remark, calling it inappropriate and unprofessional, especially given the age difference in their mentor-mentee dynamic. Shaq did not escalate the situation and avoided public arguments, yet the incident showed how quickly public opinion can shift. His personal life carried its own challenges. Shaq married Shawnee Nelson in 2002, and together they raised a blended family of 6 children. The marriage began strong, but eventually suffered from issues Shaq admitted were partly his fault. In 2007, he filed for divorce, then attempted reconciliation. By 2009, Shawnee filed again, and the divorce finalized in 2011. Shaq later said he took responsibility for the marriage failing, admitting he made mistakes and allowed distractions to interfere with his role as a partner. Even after the separation, he remained committed to fatherhood, emphasizing independence, education, and structure. He often said he refused to give his children automatic access to his wealth and wanted them to build lives with their own effort. His children followed different paths. Sharif pursued basketball, fighting through a heart surgery in 2018 to return to the court with determination. Amira and Shaquille also chose basketball, carrying the family's athletic legacy forward. His youngest daughter, Mayara, committed to the Florida Gators, continuing the tradition as one of the most promising young prospects in the country. Shaq has remained protective, even stating that he forbids his daughters from dating NBA players to shield them from professional sports pressures. After his marriage ended, he entered several public relationships, including time with reality star Nicole Alexander and model Letitia Rowley. He never remarried, choosing instead to build a life centered around his children, businesses, and entertainment career. Shaq's journey proves how discipline, vision, and resilience can reshape a life completely. His empire keeps growing, his influence keeps expanding, and his story still evolves. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like and subscribe so you never miss the next deep dive.